If you have ever found yourself setting a goal and being so excited for it, you've got your notebook out, you've done all the bullet points, you've thought it through, you know exactly what you need to do, you know the steps you need to take, you know how you need to show up. And yet, for some reason, you can't bring yourself to take that first step because deep down, there's a little part of you that doesn't really believe that you can achieve this. This is your self doubt showing up, and it can be so frustrating. But the self doubt that we have built is here to protect you. She's here to keep you safe, and ignoring this self doubt and pretending it's not there isn't going to help you move towards your goal any faster. Often, I work with a lot of women that are very focused on being caught up on the next milestone, the next goal, the next task, and they neglect the inner work that they need to do. And because they are not rebuilding their self belief and how they see themselves, they find themselves hitting the same hurdles time and time again, and therefore not being able to get to the result that they want to, or it taking a whole lot more grit than it actually needs to take to get there. So, welcome back to the Zala Shift podcast. I am so incredibly excited to have you here. I help women rebuild their self belief using NLP and psychology to become the very best version of them and leave behind the old stories and limiting beliefs that have been ruling the show for way too long so that you can actually reach your potential and achieve the things that you know you can and you know you want to this year. So let's start with what actually is self doubt. This episode is going to cover how to manage self doubt, what it is, how you can overcome it so that it doesn't keep showing up on like a little devil on your shoulder, causing you to feel stuck and frustrated, and so that you actually believe you can achieve your goals, because your belief and conviction to achieving a goal is probably going to be the biggest predictor as to how successful you are and how long it takes you to achieve your goal. Because I have seen this firsthand. If I have been working towards a goal, and let's use my business for example, right at the start, even though I've been so excited and so passionate about working with the women that I work with, there was a little part of me that didn't really believe anyone would want to work with me, that thought they would look at me and think I wasn't good enough, and they would doubt my potential to help them. And therefore, as a result, this little self doubt voice would stop me even showing up. It would stop me posting on my stories. It would stop me posting the carousel. It would stop me doing the email marketing. And so, what would happen is my beliefs would be reaffirmed and I would end up staying in the exact same position. And this is why building from the inside out, and first and foremost, changing how you actually see yourself, is one of the most fundamental things you can do. You can't just hustle harder to achieve new levels. If you really want to achieve something incredible this year that is away from anything you have normally done, that is going to start with your mindset and your beliefs. Your business can only grow as far as your mindset allows. So we've obviously all heard of self-doubt, and it is that internal voice that pops up anytime we try and do something, anytime we set our sights on a goal. It is that little voice that goes, can you really do this? Are you really capable of this? Are you good enough for this? And it causes us to have that horrible, heavy feeling where the words sink in and we go, actually, maybe I can't do this. And we often see self doubt as a bad thing. And obviously, when it's ruling the show and it's driving things, it's not going to help us get to where we want to go. However, the reason we have self doubt is a protective mechanism. It is your brain trying to keep you safe. And your brain is always looking back to your past experiences, looking to understand what you've done so far, looking to understand other times you've maybe struggled or given up or not gone 110% at your goal. And it uses that as evidence to predict what is going to happen next, even if it is not 100% accurate. And especially when we combine this with the fact that your brain has a negativity bias, meaning that our brains often seek and hold on to the negative information much more than it does the positive, we are Using our past experiences and potentially past failures to predict what's going to happen in the future, we are remembering the negative experiences much more than we do the positive, and therefore we go into future situations, new goals, things that stretch us, and your brain is already looking for a threat. It's going, where is the threat? How can I keep myself safe here? What do I need to be on guard for? And often it just feels safer and more comfortable to hold ourselves back than it does to really go into a goal. Because a lot of the time I speak to ladies, and I know this is such a familiar feeling, that if you have this little bit of self doubt in you, if you already doubt your potential to achieve this goal, then that feels more comfortable because at least that way you're not disappointed if you don't achieve it. However, the backlash of this is that you're going to go into things with one foot in and one foot out, not really showing up as the version of you that needs to be showing up in order to achieve your goal. Because we've done episodes on identity before, and the old version of you, the old version of you with the self doubt, the old beliefs, and the old habits, she is not going to get you to living a new future. True change has to start with how you see yourself. And while self doubt is running the show, that is not going to be possible. Whilst we feel the need to hang on to that protective blanket for comfort, we are not fully embodying the version of us that knows that we can be successful at our business, that knows we can be successful in our fitness plan, that knows we can be successful in whatever it is that you want to be. And that is why it is so important that we don't let the self doubt control things moving forward for us. And I want to start with making sure that if you have been struggling with self doubt, if you are someone that is always really hard on yourself, that is always seeing the negative, that is always putting off even starting because you don't really think you can do it, the first thing I need you to do is, instead of letting that negative voice run the show and giving yourself a hard time right now, I need you to show yourself compassion. There have been so many studies that show when people treat themselves with compassion, they are much more likely to perform better because as a result, they are able to continue learning and growing. Whereas when you give yourself a hard time for what you have done in the past, you take away that room for growth and change. It is not your fault that you have struggled with this for so long. Your brain has been keeping you safe on overdrive and doing everything it possibly could to ensure that you don't fail, to ensure that you don't get hurt, that you don't get disappointed. And we need to actually, instead of giving ourselves a hard time, look at that part of us and actually say thank you and appreciate it for all of the work that it has been doing to keep you safe, but recognizing that actually we don't need to let this self doubt run the show. We don't need to let it continue to drive things forward. Now, how can we actually rebuild ourselves so that the self doubt isn't running the show? Because you might feel like you've always been someone that has struggled with it slightly, that has always had a very strong self doubt, that has always been very, very critical. So, the first thing I want you to focus on doing is allowing yourself to start small. Whatever the goal is that you have in mind right now, whether it be to start a new business, whether it be to start a new fitness plan, to start the gym, whatever the goal is that you have, I want you to scale it back. Not scale it back from the goal, but scale it back in terms of the starting point. Because we want to allow ourselves to actually build evidence and allow our brain to recognize what we are capable of. Because often what happens is when we go to start something new, we get really hyper fixated on all of the reasons we can't possibly do something. And this is where we then find ourselves doom scrolling, procrastinating, putting off the task to the next day and the next day, and never quite getting there. So strip it back and focus on the smallest thing that you can do to take yourself a little bit closer to that goal. It does not matter how small it is. Maybe your goal is to start working out, and instead of doing the full workout, you just do some squats one day. Maybe if your goal is you've got an incredible business idea, but you've been putting off taking that first step, maybe you just set up the Instagram page. Nothing more. You don't even need a profile picture, but you just set up the Instagram page. Start as small as you possibly can, because what this does straight away is it gives your brain a win. It gives your brain something to celebrate. It gives your brain that tiny bit of evidence that goes, actually, maybe I can do this. Maybe I am capable. versus being fixated on all of the other negative bits of information. The other thing I want you to do is to look at where you can borrow evidence. So, what do I mean by borrow evidence? Often we already know that we can be consistent or we can be resilient or we can set our mind to things, but we don't truly believe it because you don't take time to notice the skills that you already have and where you have applied it to. So, I want you to take a little bit of a step back and whatever you've been telling yourself, I'm not consistent enough. I'm not good enough. I always give up at the first hurdle. I have never been able to do XYZ. Whatever it might be, can you ask yourself, is there an area in your life where you have shown that you can actually do this? So for example, maybe you're trying to get started in the gym and you've been telling yourself that you're just not motivated or you really lack that discipline or you really struggle to stay consistent. But maybe you are so hardworking at your job. And what this highlights straight away is actually you can be very disciplined. You can be very hardworking and you do have those skills within you. And actually, we need to be able to borrow and apply those skills to another area of our life, but allowing yourself to recognize that actually you do have these traits already within you. You use them on a regular basis. You're just not currently using them towards this goal. And this really links to that ability to challenge the negative self thoughts, that self talk that is coming up for you. Do not see it as truth because it is not truth. The past does not predict the future and it doesn't show us what's going to happen. It doesn't matter how many times you've given up, how many times you feel like you failed. That does not then mean this is what is going to happen because actually failure is a good thing. We need failure. Failure is how we learn. If we do not make mistakes, we cannot improve. But often we give ourselves such a hard time. We spiral so much that we never give ourselves that opportunity to learn and grow and to be able to re-navigate with the new information that we have. And this is again why that self-compassion is so key. So when those little voices are coming up of saying, what's the point? No one's ever going to want to work with me. What's the point? I've never been able to do this before. Why would this time be different? Whatever it is that is coming up for you, I want you to just stop and pause. And instead of ignoring it, bottling it up, trying to push on forward, whatever you might be doing, I want you to actually listen to it. I want you to actually acknowledge it because often we are taught to just push through and put our emotions to one side and to not actually pay attention to it. I want you to do the opposite. I want you to listen to it loud and clear. And I want you to ask yourself, is this thought really true? Because probably not. But where is it coming from? And often we don't give ourselves an opportunity to even consider the negative thought. We just embed it within us. We let it give us that horrible, icky feeling, and we shy away from what it is that we want to do. So instead, actually listen and acknowledge the thoughts that are coming up for you. And I want you to ask yourself, is it really true? Is there any evidence behind this? And equally, even if the worst case did happen, even if you did give up, even if you did struggle, wouldn't you rather know that you tried and you gave it your all than you just didn't even give it a go? If the worst case did happen, could you manage it? Would you be okay? Because a lot of the time the answer is yes. But again, we get really in our head that we struggle to even take that first step that allows us to learn. Next, we want to focus on messy action. This is honestly one of my favorite mottos because the reality is, whatever you are starting, you are never going to be perfect on it. You're never going to have all the answers straight away. You're always going to be adapting, adjusting, and changing. That is all part of it. Like, life is never perfect. Life is never straightforward. I'm sure we all know that by now. Sometimes life really tests us, and it's really hard. And actually being okay with this and knowing that you might not have all your ducks in a row. You might not have the perfect launch plan. You might not have the branding all figured out. You might not have the full 3-month plan that you want to follow, whatever it might be. But you don't need it. Maybe you're starting a diet plan and you know you've got a meal out the following week. That is completely because realistically, you are never going to get a quiet moment of life where things will be fully perfect. And so instead of aiming for the right time or all of your ducks to be in a row, It is about just taking messy action and showing up in whatever way you possibly can. Because realistically, the more time you give yourself to think about it, the more you are going to procrastinate, the more you are going to put things off, and the longer you are going to leave it before you just get started and allow yourself to start building up evidence and to start building up the evidence that you need to allow yourself to see what you are actually capable of when you set your mind to it. So, if you are listening to this episode right now, this is your perfect sign to ask yourself if you were to take messy action right now after this episode, whenever you are listening to it. What is one thing that you could do that you can be really proud of yourself for, and just know that it is taking you a step in the right direction, regardless as to how small it is? And I would love for you to comment or message me and let me know what it is that you do or what it is that you are intending to do, because we can do all of the mindset work that we want, but the only way the mindset work is going to be fully embedded and change us is if that starts showing up in our actions and we start changing how we are behaving. And my favorite little secret of all times is to let yourself visualize. I often talk to people that are actually a little bit unclear of what their goal is. And also, not just what their goal is. I talk to a lot of people that can say what their goal is, but they can't say what would be different when they achieve their goal. And if your brain doesn't really know why it is working towards what it is working towards, it's really hard to keep showing up and to take action. And there is a lot of research showing that your brain doesn't really know the difference between what is imagined and what really happens. So, visualization is a really, really good way to start building up the practice pathways in your brain of how you would show up if you were already there at your goal. Because at the end of the day, like I said earlier, what you're doing right now probably won't get you to the desired outcome. There's going to be a little bit of a mismatch. So, if you want things to really change, that has to start with changing how we see ourselves and what we believe about ourselves. Visualization allows you to get clear on what that would actually look like so we can start to close that gap between the version of you right now that is feeling a little bit stuck and the version of you that has achieved your goal. And often we get really caught up and we just focus on this gap. We focus on the space between where we want to be and where we are right now, and we often just think about how far away this feels. But visualization allows you to close that gap and start bringing the future version of you into right now, which is inevitably going to be the very thing that leads you to seeing those changes and actually becoming and embodying her on a day-to-day basis. And this then makes it easier to show up. So if you've never done visualization, you can do it in a few different ways. There are so many guided YouTube videos that I absolutely love doing. Another way that is always a favorite is writing down a journal entry in the present as if you were in the future. So maybe you do at the end of 2026, for example, and you write a full journal entry about what your life is looking like. And I really want you to connect to the emotions. Like, feel the confidence that you feel right there and then. Feel how proud you are of everything that you have achieved. Feel the satisfaction of seeing what you dreamt of for so long being true. Look at how your house looks, your environment looks, how you move through the day, what your relationships are like. The more you can picture it, the more you can have that really clear image, the easier it is then going to be to feel that within you and to act like it. And it's also a really good way, if you're feeling a little bit low, to reignite that motivation and to excite you by bringing to light all of the different senses. All of those different senses for us. Now, to end the episode, let's talk about the things I really want you to be on close awareness for to make sure you don't fall into the trap of. And this is waiting until the perfect moment. That is exactly what the self-doubt wants you to do. It doesn't want you to move. Realistically, your brain doesn't really want you to change and grow and evolve as a person, and it would be quite happy for you to stay exactly where you are. 95% of our thoughts and behaviors operate on a purely subconscious level, so we are not even aware of them, which really highlights how much attention and effort we need to implement if we want to change. You are not going to change by chance. You are not going to wake up one day and suddenly be completely different. that requires you to really put in the intentional effort and time. And so you're never really going to feel ready because your brain wants anything but for you to change. Because if you change, if you grow, if you up level, if you achieve all of these goals that you have that feel a little bit scary right now, that sounds awful and your brain can't predict what is going to happen. And therefore, you're probably never going to feel ready to fully do it. And so start before you're ready, because every little step you take is showing you what you are capable of. It's giving you new evidence, and therefore each step is going to get a little bit easier, a little bit easier, and a little bit easier. Make sure that particularly now in this day and age, you are staying in your own lane. Get yourself off social media. Mute people that are causing the self-doubt to be louder. Build an environment that facilitates you. Work with people that are going to lift you up. Surround yourself with people that remind you of what you are capable of. Mute anyone that makes you feel negative or makes you sort of compare and feel like you are not good enough. Because all this is doing is building the self-doubt up and making you think that you are not capable and you can't do this, which we know is not true. So audit your environment right now. What is adding and contributing to that self-doubt and causing you to feel more negative about your journey, and putting the brakes on so that you're finding it hard to take that first step. Your environment is one of the easiest and biggest game changers you can make. It can either facilitate your journey and make it so much easier, or it can hold you back and make it so much harder for you. Remember that the reason you have self-doubt is not because you're broken. It's not because you can't do this. It's not because there is any truth behind it. It is a normal human protective factor that you have it. But no matter how long you've been struggling, no matter how hard it is felt in the before, you are always capable of changing. Humans are incredible. Our brains are always evolving, and you can change so much in such a short span of time. So please don't let self-doubt rule the show. Accept that she's there. She is there to help you. She is there to serve you, but she doesn't need to dictate and completely run things for you. And by starting to take these small aligned actions, shifting your environment and showing up as if you were already there, everything is going to feel so much freaking easier for you. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Make sure you subscribe and follow the podcast. I would love to know what you thought of the episode. And if you would like some more support on working one-to-one on rewiring your self-doubt and changing your limiting beliefs, make sure you click the link in the description.